so that we can save this for others. We are going to, we're going to talk about leadership and the strengths and the intersection of that tonight and like what transformation is. We're also going to do some coaching or deeper sharing at the end, and we will stop the recording before we get to that because there are people who aren't going to make it tonight that want the slide portion of our call together. So we will stop at the end and then include as many people as we can in that process. So if you're just joining us, feel free to look in the chat and add your strengths from Clifton Strengths Finder if you have them. How many of you have these cards? You can see the 4 colors of the 4 domains. I got these from the Gallup Strength Center shop, their little online store. And these cards are about $15. They're insight cards, and they really are pretty amazing. It's I am, I will, I bring, I need, and it just goes through all of the data on every single one of the 34 talent themes. So it's a great little gift for yourself or others to have handy. It's possible. I have these all in a spreadsheet too. So if you don't like cards, we can probably find a spreadsheet if that's easier for you. My achiever activator is like, this takes too long. So I need it all in one place. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to talk about what we came here to talk about. Why don't you go ahead in the chat box, if you can tell me what the best outcome is for you for being here tonight. Why are you here tonight? What is the best outcome for you? What is the best outcome? What's the best thing that could possibly happen tonight for you? It might be some of you are leading a team, and I often hear that it's not as much fun as that you were having at the beginning. So you're hoping the strengths, if you apply that, it's going to sort of unlock some magic, not just your magic, but you want to learn how to motivate and activate others that you're leading and mentoring. There's no wrong answer to this question, but why are you here? What's the best thing to happen from that? By asking that type of question every single time you sit down with a group, you're actually grounding everybody into a certain vision together, because we're going to co-create this class tonight. I am going to share some slides, and then we're going to talk. So what each of us brings to that table is really, really important, including like, what is it? Is there a mindset that you want to bring tonight on the call? Like, what's your intention while you're here? Like, I'm going to bring openness. I'm hoping to understand my strengths more. Or I'm stuck in some area and I'd like to know why that is. Or I just wanted to see Kate. Always good. Always a good answer to attend the calls. My relator's like, yes, that's why I'm here too. So whatever that is for you, curious, just go ahead and type that in there. And I won't be able to hear. I think some of you are going, why is it that I'm here? Which is totally okay. I'm going to go ahead and shift screens. I won't be able to see the chat box, but I will come back to it. And so our first slide tonight is, you'll notice the acronym REAL, and we're going to actually cover that at the end. But in my experience, real leaders, real entrepreneurial leaders, they use their strengths to transform everything. And just to confirm that you can see the slides, when I had that slide up, can everybody give me a thumbs up that you could see it? Did you see a big table? Give me a thumbs up if you did. No? Thumbs down when I shared that slide? Let's take a look again. There it is. Could you see it that time, that table? Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you, guys. Okay, fantastic. So, real leaders, there are some qualities of real leadership. And what I find is that when people use their strengths to transform it, magic happens. It doesn't come in the form that they're sometimes looking for. But sometimes it's that process of awakening to not only who you are and valuing who you are as enough to do whatever vision you had in mind, whatever your goal was, but it's also owning that the way that you view the world looks a certain way, and the way that other people view the world looks a certain way. I believe that every single person was born to be a leader, That could be a leader of their family, a leader of their job. But within each person is a very unique set of talents, and it is possible for each person to lead in the zone that they were born in. And some people will go on to lead in a larger way. But leadership, even in the smallest way, which could be making your bed, it could be, just in stewarding with what you have, that's also leadership. And I find that the people who attract lots of followers, people who want to attract lots of followers or create a bigger impact in their sphere or serve in a big way, those are the people who are willing to take a look at the lens that they view the world through. They're willing to see what is. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. In the beginning, when you had your vision, the beginning of our dream and our vision was exciting. We felt energy just getting started in something new. I know some of you can totally relate. And you're welcome to talk to each other in the chat box if that's supportive for you. But in the beginning, what did you think? In the beginning, it was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to get debt free, or I have this new idea and I'm going to take it up. There's this passion that I have for the world, and the view was amazing. And then you started adding in some online stuff in order to keep the business running. You started holding hands with some people in order to do this together. You may be having loads of coffee. You might be having lots of one-to-ones and working with a team. And you add people into that mix, and it can get complicated. There's more than you and your dream. There's things that need to be executed. There's things you have to learn. And it may not feel as though it was exciting as it was at the beginning. I'm sure some of you have noticed that. It's like you're on some kind of high and there's some dips in there. And sometimes it feels like you're in it all by yourself. So we just want to be present with the reality that the dream is not enough to kind of get us through all of the rest of that. And we know that everybody is different in terms of what they need in order to accomplish their vision. So in the Gallup-Clifton Strengths Finder test, there's 34 talent themes. And a talent plus a skill equals a strength. They're not 34 strengths. Sometimes we say that because it says theme insights. It doesn't say strengths insights. You bring the skill to the talent, and that's how it becomes a strength for you. So the raw version of all of those talents is not the same as the mature version. There's a shadow and there's a light in each of those talents. There is a balcony and a basement, or some people might use the phrase limited, like it could be, this is where I limit myself, or it's an overuse pattern. And every theme has something it's trying to contribute. So you take a bunch of people and put them in the same room, like we have tonight. And 1 in 278,000 are going to have the top 5 talents in random order. So that means if you meet somebody that has your top 5 in random order, in their top 5, that's your Strengths Twin. And there's a website that you can enter those in on. If you look up Strengths Twin, you should get right there. If your top 5 talents were in the same order as somebody else, the chances of that happening are 1 in 33.4 million. To find somebody that had your top 10 would be 1 in 12.2 trillion. Just your top 10. That means your board of directors inside your head, those 10 talents that are advising you and criticizing you and lifting you up and hiding and all of that whole conversation, there's nobody like you. Your crazy is your own show. My crazy is my own show. So it's that rare. I did do a consult the other day for an executive at a company, and it turns out he and I share 11 out of 15. And that's the most with any human being that I've ever found. And it feels pretty amazing. They're not in the same order, so it's not like 12.2 trillion. But it was very profound to us in conversation for us to see how different we were and also how similar. We had very similar needs. We have a similar faith. There's a lot that was the same. We have similar roles previously in our life, but still very, very different. So the way we look at these talents and how I want you to view them for the purpose of our time together is that 1 through 10 is your board of directors. That means those talents are available to you. 11 through 15, you can resource by intention. That means you use all 15 every day, most likely in some capacity. That means that all your top 15 have needs. And that's something for you to explore. What do I need to thrive? What do I need to move my business along? 16 through 21, you can understand, but they're not really accessed. So I understand that somebody has communication at 16. I don't need to express myself in that same way. It's not as energizing for me, but I can see that and I understand it. It doesn't feel weird to me or strange or something else. 22 through 29 is definitely a blind spot or a non-talent and could even be considered some weakness. 29 through 34, that bottom 5, is like, what the what? What is going on? How does this person approach that project this way? How do they connect or not connect that way? And it's just, you just aren't wired like them. You might even say you don't vibe the same as them, or they're hard to understand, or maybe you feel like they keep triggering you, or vice versa, where you can't anticipate what they need. You have to go look it up on a chart. You're coaching people and mentoring people, that can become crazy making, because it's not something you and yourself are strong in. It really feels blind. And it's important for us to have a name for that and a curiosity so that we can move forward and grow in our leadership. When someone misunderstands us, that also can create some tension in relationship. So this next component I want you to share with me, and I'm going to flip back over to our other screen, and I want you to think about what a good leader is. So I'm going to hit stop share for a second. What is a good leader? Let's talk about this together. What I would love to have is somebody actually read the chat box for me while I type. Is there any volunteers to read the chat box for me? I can't see a hand. Anybody? Josephine's smiling. You want to do it? Okay, great. No? Okay, awesome. I'm going to unmute you. Welcome, Josephine. Thanks for offering.
Hi,
thanks for letting me volunteer you.
No problem.
Okay.
So what would you like me to read?
So I want everybody to type inside that chat box, what is it that makes a good leader? What is it? How do you define excellent leadership or good leadership? What is the goal for a leader? Anybody can type, and Josephine's going to read it for me. We're going to take a look. Someone with vision? That's right there. Can you see that, Josephine?
Yep. Someone with vision, right?
Okay, so they have vision.
Service and sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who allows their team to shine and hanging in the background supporting.
Nice.
Good listener.
Okay.
Ability to give business structure that others can follow.
Nice.
Humble and honest. Transparent.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Okay.
Approachable.
Anything else? I want you to stretch a little bit and think about an excellent leadership. What do you think is required of those leaders too? So these are some great qualities of an excellent leader. And what else are you making up in your head when you picture who do you have to be to succeed as a leader? Who do you have to be? What's going on? Like, describe the life when you picture somebody that inspires you. What's their life look like?
So you have a few more here. You
Okay.
have holds the vision.
Mm-hmm.
Someone with a good heart to individual needs. Vulnerable, real, and relevant. Holds the vision and does the hard things.
Mm-hmm.
Is brave, takes risks, and is willing to fail.
Excellent.
Passionate and capable speaker.
Thank you.
Helps bring out the best in others. Consistent, and someone typed meet, but I'm not sure what they meant. Maria, maybe you want to type something. Oh, okay, there we go. Able to problem solve. Meet.
Okay, great.
Yep. Able to problem solve.
Okay, excellent. Let me see if I can shrink this text up a little bit.
Write a list.
Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't work. Okay. All right, this is an excellent list. So when you think of these, and I'm seeing integrity, yes. Integrity, excellent, thank you. I'm gonna add that on here. Keeps promises, yes, yes. And accountability. So every strength set can do any of these things, right? No matter who you are and what strengths you have, it's possible for you to hold a vision. You're going to have a certain style of bringing the best out in others. And sometimes this is where we see dissonance when women and men are closely working together, because we have a certain way that we prefer people to be. Like, I have a preferred way. There's a magic formula to, if you have a nurture sequence and it includes me, there's a magic formula to win my approval. I have, with my strength set, I'm one of those people that tells you what it is, so there's no mystery. But other strength sets are not willing to communicate that, or it's too hard to communicate. People with high empathy, oftentimes they just know, but that 1% they're off is really triggering for them. Or they're like, I don't understand how I missed that with them. You know, they're really hard on themselves about it because they want it in tune. They want people to feel heard. People with high influencing strengths, and that would be like woo, communication, activator, competition, command, all of those kinds of strengths, their nurture sequence, their leadership looks very different sometimes. Like, they're not afraid to lean in. They want that flow. So they want good feedback. They want clear conversation. They want it to be direct. And so if you're partnering people with high influencing and high relationship strengths are like connectedness, includer, positivity, empathy, then you're going to notice that the leadership has to be able to pivot to bring out the best in those people, to work with them, to inspire them. So there has to be this willingness to see 360 in your leadership in order for you to lead a variety of human beings. And we just shared like that actually they are very, very different. So holding these together, and I'm going to do a couple things. One is I'm saving this so that we don't lose it. And I want to come back to our slides for a second. And I want you to think about your own leadership and where you think it needs to grow. When you saw that list, and we'll have a chance in a moment, I want you to notice which parts of leadership you feel like you're holding back a little bit. Or where do you feel a little disconnected from your people, or unclear in your vision, or not even sure? Some of you don't even have a team yet, and you're about to build a team. And I want you just to notice your present conversation, whatever stories in your head about your ability to do that or not do it, and where you judge yourself and where you can give yourself praise. Just be present with it. Make a little note on the paper that you're using tonight. This is the graphic that makes people attend these classes. I want to show you what's happening on this journey with you, with all of those thought bubbles and excellent leadership and growing leadership. At the beginning of it, like we said, we're like super excited to start. We're confident, and we're moving into more of a striving energy with effort. So it's, let's do this. I'm starting my vision. I'm focused. I am doing this. I am doing it. And then you get really determined, especially if you don't see results right away, and you're like, I will do this. I will do it. I said I was going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm determined to do it. It's happening. If I do it, it's going to happen. All of that is sort of this striving energy. It takes effort. So when you're in that space with your vision, you start creating a growth strategy. You learn the plan. You may have been taught what that plan and that roadmap is from somebody else, or you may have been the one that created that growth strategy. And all of those kinds of things what happen in what we call external learning. So then as you're doing it and that effort starts to weigh on you, you're going to notice you need new tools to perform. And this is why strengths came in for some of you. I need some new tools to make this a little easier. Some of you have downloaded 1 million free online classes. Some of you have invested thousands in tools online and coaching and different things in order to continue that effort and to make that effort easier. If you hit a wall, that's what this big upside down yellow arrow is. If you hit a wall and you notice that at some point on that journey, you're frustrated. Your strengths are frustrated, your needs aren't being met, you're not even sure about this vision anymore. This is the moment where the internal learning needs to start. So you might come into doubt. This is where you start wondering if you're capable. What's wrong with me? And then you're going to notice and you're going to tune in to more conflict. You might even create more conflict. And that's where you're like, what's wrong with them? It's got to be the system. It's got to be my upline, my boss, whatever else is happening. And you're looking to fix all of that and you're in some kind of loop. And alongside of that, some support might come for you to really see what your identity is. And again, this is where strengths can come into play. And we're asking you, what's right with you? Not what's wrong with you. We're asking you to focus on what's right. That works. That works for the first minute. And I'll tell you why. So I've been working with a couple different groups and running these pilots and doing some study for the last 15 months. And what I've noticed is that when that conflict hits, sometimes we're living in volunteer land. We're treating everybody like a volunteer, and we don't want to talk about the conflict. But it's all underneath. So even though on your teams and in your company, it may not be spoken out loud, there is a massive elephant of misunderstanding and people who are interpreting and assigning meaning in their own head and trying to figure out how to do everything, but all of their personal development is inside their own head, which is okay. I'm not judging that. That is where you start. But this space of raising EQ, which is how we move beyond this part of the line, which is strengths intelligence, also means you have to get curious. If you're going to lead, you have to get curious about other people and their strengths and their needs and their triggers. And you have to increase your capacity to care about their needs. Most of us actually don't care enough about people to transform our character. So we would rather hit that wall of conflict and be right than stay connected. We would rather start our own group and dismiss or stonewall or figure out what that is. Most of us would rather do that than transform our character and learn the art of difficult conversation and take an ownership of our impact, because that is the hard work. And it doesn't have to be hard. It can be curious, but it feels super hard when you're not even sure if you're safe in your own head. So I just want to notice that. If you don't start transforming yourself, the pathway is then to despair, which is where you question everything. I don't think I even want to. And I don't know if I can. I don't know if, and what if I can't? What if they can't? What if they don't like me? What if I'll never win them over? What if they're going to write me off forever? All of that negative, fearful thinking that just goes round and round. And that's a space that you actually have to have loads of self-compassion for, because it's everybody. Like this, I could have said the human journey, and it's the same thing. It's a leader, it's an entrepreneur, it's a human. This is the same journey. So that place where you started in your dream and you thought it was going to create freedom and then it didn't, you don't get to freedom without going through the doorway of despair. So if you're not at some level of despair yet, you're actually not done settling for the dysfunction. You have to allow yourself, with self-compassion, to feel your frustration so that you can learn a new way of being and experience the happiness and the freedom and the joy and the resilience and the energy that's possible. So there is more joy possible in your journey than you have right now. And the path there is to get super real about what's not working. And that is what we call the heroic, is I know who I am, I know who I'm not, and both are okay. And I know who you are, maybe. I know who you may be, and it's okay. And it's okay if you fail. It's okay if I fail, it's okay if you fail. So this is that whole space of, I would even call this is where daring greatly happens, if you're familiar with Brene Brown. But again, you can't get over there until you raise your EQ, are honest about your frustration, and start transforming yourself. So that's a big thing to look at. Now I want to hear what you guys are thinking. What are you thinking as you see that? Where are you on that journey? Are you still in tool gathering? Are you feeling frustrated? And we're going to talk more at the end, but I just want you to think in your head, write it down, and write right there, like, hey, I'm in identity learning. Or, hey, I'm still learning to keep my time. Or, hey, I want to quit. I'm ready to quit. Or I'm just ready to try to figure out how to build this with no people. Has that ever been done before? I'm going to start an online business, Kate. I got a call this week. A couple of people want to do that. I'm just going to do it online. Then I don't have to deal with all the drama. And I'm like, well, welcome to the human universe. There will be people. And those people will message you, and you will still have to deal with them. So we can't actually take them out of the picture. So noticing that in that space, now that you've taken a note of where you might be, let's go back over there. Strengths intelligence is you, the mastery of you. You have to master yourself as though your freedom and your business depends on it, because it really, really does. Business is personal. It's always personal. This inside out stuff is the only path there. It's really the only way for you to experience the fullness of the joy that's available to you. Them, that means I'm curious about them, and I'm not curious like I'm looking up their strengths so I can judge them less. But it's actually like I want goodwill and hope for even the person who I like the least, or the person I least understand. I also want to be in a neutral place for them. I want to create that neutral zone for them. Then the situation is I'm going to aim my strengths towards my goal and stay aware of all of these at the same time. I'm going to zoom up to 10,000 feet. And I'm not going to take things personally anymore. And I'm going to aim my talent and allow them to aim their talent and allow those to be different. Allow it to look a different way. I'm not going to focus on the blame. I'm going to own my triggers. The 4 categories of these strengths talents does come into play with strengths intelligence, because we have to own that there's 4 very different way, at least 4 very different way that people show up. For this moment, I want you to think about you. If you're a strategic thinker, you can focus on what could be. So your leadership is very influenced by that. So if, for instance, if you have futuristic and you have people that don't have that anywhere near their top 10, you might have to paint the picture for them to remind them of who they are and where they're going. That's the beauty of that element of your leadership. If you move over to influencing, these are higher energy people sometimes. They take motion. If you're mentoring someone with activator and you notice their energy going down, you got to figure out where they're stuck. You support them to get unstuck, because activator doesn't like to do stuck. There's a couple other strengths that don't like to do that either. If you're mentoring someone with maximizer, they set the most excellent goals. So you have to really consider, and even in your own goals, do your goals creep? Do you have scope creep on your goals? And it's just never, ever good enough. Amazing inner critic for maximizer, also developer, I would say, are very similar in that light. Relationship building, you got to know your needs, and you got to do that emotional intelligence work. You have to raise your EQ and put language to your emotions. This is the path for you. Not more than anybody else, but just because you're self-care, if you get triggered when you're high empathy and high relationship and you're in a relationship-based business, you're going to shut down your engagement. Or you're going to get really judgy and preachy. Either of those are possible, depending on what they're paired with. And neither is wrong, because if you have high relationship, you actually do need to express some of that. But relationship builders need authenticity. They need an invitation. They want to be enrolled in a way that feels authentic. That doesn't mean that they're hard to handle. It's a beautiful energy to bring in. Remember, there's a shadow and a light to all of these. Executing strengths, they bring the goal. They can set the goal. And they really want to know what the rules of connection are if they dominate in executing. So that can come with a level of high expectation. But if you master the art of clarifying the expectation, these will be the most loyal people on your teams and in your business. So this is just, these are just a few comments about that, because as you're looking at some of this emotional intelligence stuff, this is the language that makes that super easy. Here are the actual colors that Gallup uses. So that's right from their Strengths Insight cards. So you can see what they've done in each of these categories. And if we make a team grid, you'll be able to see everybody lined up, and then we'll map them all together. So here's another component of your leadership, and we're going to talk about the story of me. So here's something important to understand. The story of me, this is the narrative you tell of yourself. And I am awesome is one of the first things, if we were really listening. When I get people talking about strengths, I want them to tell me how awesome they are. This is the moment where that's okay. Another story that I hear a lot is what is too hard. Like people are focused on what's too hard and they want to fix their weakness. And that's actually not a good path to achievement. Fixing weakness doesn't work. That's why the strengths, like Gallup has done so much research on this. However, if you're living in a story that building your business is too hard, we need to tackle that. So that's a longer coaching conversation, but there is a space like, wow, am I relating to this like it's too hard? I'm going to have less resources if that's true. If in your mind you're looking for people, like you're feeling like you're not understood or not heard, that might be a predominant block too to you moving further to freedom. If you're looking out there in the world and you're wondering if people are going to understand you, your brain will actually look for evidence to support that. It's just how it works. Your brain is always looking for confirmation of what those fears are. So if you feel like you don't fit in and you're worried that you don't fit in or you're not like made for the thing, you're going to look through the entire business model that you're working with and find evidence. So this is just important to know. I just want you to own it. We're going to get to the sharing in a moment. The story of them is the other component of leadership. If you can own these stories, you're going to move further along that line. So that means people are, like however you relate to people are hard to interpret. If you have an opinion about men, like men are, or women are, or the industry is, or whatever those stories are that you make up, these generalizations that we have, if we can identify these are actually the filters that you're listening through. So for instance, if you have a judgment about people in a different theme set, for instance, if empathy people are difficult for you to work with, in your mind, you're like, empathy people are going to be difficult. Then every time you see somebody that comes up and you see their test come out and you don't approach it with neutrality, your judgment is going to actually taint the space that you create for this human being. Because in your mind, you weren't judgment-free when you approached their results. You do that with yourself, you do it with family members and everywhere. So you got to know whatever judgments you have, like people who have communication talk too much. Well, sometimes I have felt that way, I will be honest. So my clients that have communication, I meet the need. I set up 5 minutes at the beginning. They can say anything they want. And once they've done that, their energy level comes down to a level that I can connect with them. If I skip over that, our energies are different and I can't actually communicate in the same way. So there's a way to meet the need without judging the talent or judging the overuse. I can give very specific feedback because I know what my filters are to some degree. Okay, before we go to there, let's just check in for a second. So what are you hearing? What's standing out to you? Anybody want to unmute and chat for a minute? You can type in the chat box or just raise your hand and I will unmute you. Anybody have any thoughts or a little thought bubble that came up that they want to talk about? Okay. Josephine, would you like to share?
Okay.
You don't have to. It just looked like it just unmuted on you. So I just did a first volunteer.
Reading my mind. I don't know what kind of strength is that. That's scary.
What's up?
I was just debating about typing this in the chat box or not, and it unmuted itself. So there you go. When you asked us initially to write down some thoughts about where we were at, like our questions about our own leaderships, different places. One of the first question I wrote down was, do I always bring value? So that's kind of rooming around in my head and trying to, serve my team and meet their needs. And you just hit it again with the thing that you just did down the bottom, because, it's somewhere stuck in the story of me, right?
Right. Like it's in my leadership, it's important to bring value. Like that's a core value that you have.
Right.
I want to bring value. But then if your brain is always wondering, did I give enough value?
Right.
Then it's searching for evidence that you did or didn't.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I had a call this morning with my team that was supposed to be on a specific training that they requested, and none of them showed up ready to do that particular thing. But I kind of also have a belief that we all kind of, we're where we're at, and that's where we need to be. And what did show up is some other really valuable stuff that we all needed to really connect and share about. And
Nice.
that's what we did. And
What's
then I
your
got
top 5 again? Let me look these up here.
I analyzed it and said, oh my gosh, did I bring value to that? Did I, because I didn't do what we intended to do and what we planned to do. And was it worth it for everybody to end up doing what we did? I thought it was okay, but I'm worried, did everybody else think it was okay?
Right. Do you have connectedness?
I think I do, yeah.
Because my connectedness is like, if that's what happened, it was perfect. So like, I'm always on board with that of like, oh, that's what needed to happen. That's the most important thing. I love Laura's comment here for you. Yeah, how do we quantify that when, and when is the value good enough, right? Right. How do you even evaluate if you're a good leader? Because depending on who you pissed off that day. Like really, sometimes that's what it feels like. It's like, oh, I didn't please them. If the value is about their pleasure in it or their approval in it, then that's a new level of awareness for us, right? It's like, oh, I'm saying it's about value, but really if I'm weighing the value as of their approval of me, or if they feel pleased with me or they're satisfied with the value, then I've missed the part where they actually owned their contribution and participation to create their own value. Because they have to meet you at the table. So when we picture that table, like on that first screen that I showed, you get to sit at the table, but they have to sit at the table too. And participation equals value. So I am always looking for who is taking ownership of that chair, who is making the most of the chair they've been given, and who's sitting under the table, settling for crumbs and not owning it. They either don't want to get up in their chair or there's something else happening. So there's that whole component there. How do we help people wake up to the fact that there's a chair there and like a whole banquet in their honor? And if they want to sit and show up, it's there. It's like available. Instead of sitting underneath going, I hope my upline gives me what I need to go and do my thing. And I hope they see my individuality and are going to let me do it the way that I want, even though they became successful doing it in that particular way. And I don't want to undermine and mock those kind of stories because that's really deep. When someone is willing to share that, we got to honor that share and go, wow, thank you for showing up with that, with your need. And can we go a little deeper? Can there maybe be something else that we're actually talking about here that sounds like me doing this for you or you don't know enough? Can we get underneath that and find a way to connect? And most people that were that bold in sharing, if they want that vision, you have to bring it back about the vision. If they want that vision, get them back in touch with their why, they will go deeper with you. And each person here on this call is capable of having that type of conversation. You probably need to learn how to ask some more coaching questions. So reach out to me if you want to learn how to do that. But there is a space of listening underneath. Once your judgment of what they're saying gets out of the way, you can listen underneath. And then really your level of listening is how I equate the value. How present were you? How aware of you were your filter while they were sharing? That is my understanding and in my mastery of some of this stuff, the most powerful tool any human being can have. Their ability to be in it, observe neutrally, come up to 10,000 degree, and meet people where they are. It's creating space. And you guys are all on your way there or you wouldn't have come on this call. So every single one of you is on that part of the path just for showing up tonight because your level of awareness just opened. And we're listening for the strategies that all of these strengths and themes have. We're listening for the strategies to connect and disconnect because there is real resistance to achieving any goal because success doesn't feel safe for anybody, including you. Success causes us to rise up. When things start working out, you're like, you have a whole other thing going on inside your head. If you have any trauma in your background or any abuse, or you're in a time of stress, it's a whole different show. And you have to have self-compassion for that show. Like, actually, I just want to watch Netflix all day. And you're going to feel that urge for Netflix day in the middle of when things are just about to break forth into your freedom. And despair will come knocking on your door again and remind you that that's risky and give you a chance to come back into safety. And when that's happening, it's a sign you need more support. It's not a sign that success is unsafe or that you're not a good leader. It's a sign that you need to increase your resourcefulness, not within you, but with community. You need to upgrade your leadership. You need to eat with people that are at your playing field and not be with people that are below or above you. You need to eat with people that are eating at that level of vision. Then you're not crazy. Any other questions about that part before we move into the components of beautiful leadership? Laura, do you want to unmute, or are you typing? Okay, awesome. Thank you for the thank you. I'm not even going, I'm holding myself back from doing strategic interdependence tonight, because your strengths and codependence look very different than interdependence, but that is not this call. So I'm like really trying to keep on track with what the slides are. So, but we'll do more of that later. And if you're in Spark Your Strengths, you already know what's going on. Strategic interdependence is the place to go. Okay. All right, let's go back and take a look at real leadership, the definitions that I have there. Let me share my screen. And if you want to talk to me while I share these, please just unmute and start talking. Okay, a real leader is resilient. All of us need to begin to think in terms of our own inner strengths, our resilience and resourcefulness, our capacity to adapt and to rely upon ourselves and our families. And that's Stephen Pressfield. And he wrote The Art of War. The Art of War, The War of Art. So close. Smart thing he did with his title. So resilience. Are you resilient? Do you feel resilient and capable? Real leaders are elevated, and they're elevating others. If you nurture your mind, body, and spirit, your time will expand. You will gain a new perspective that will allow you to accomplish much more. Brian Coslow. That's mind, body, and spirit. Some of you are already on that path, but there is an elevated way of being in it, seeing it from 10,000 feet, being neutral so your listening can really open up. It's elevated. Being willing to give your highest self. I try to do that every day. Sometimes that high road hasn't been pretty. Sometimes taking the high road too much hasn't always panned out for me either. So there is a place of being in reality with it. But being willing to look and be elevated is the goal. Real leaders are authentic. Authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. Authenticity demands wholehearted living and loving. That's mind, body, spirit, seeing yourself as whole. Even when it's hard, even when we're wrestling with the shame and the fear of not being good enough, and especially when the joy is so intense that we're afraid to let ourselves feel it. Hello, when freedom comes and that success is starting to come, that joy can be equally so intense, so we want to avoid it. And if you are numbing your pain, you are also numbing your joy. You cannot numb your pain and despair without numbing the joy. Real leaders are also willing to leverage the strengths of others. So if human beings are perceived as potentials rather than problems, as possessing strengths instead of weaknesses, as unlimited rather than that dull and unresponsive, then they thrive and they grow to their capabilities. And that's from Barbara Bush. So this is the part of the call where I'm actually going to end the recording so that we can have an honest conversation. So if you are listening to the call and you want more information, I am putting in an application for a free strengths coaching session. So I'm going to give 2 of those away from tonight's participants. They will be 30 minutes each. And so there will be a link in the Eventbrite that goes out to everybody who registered, and you'll have an opportunity to apply for a transformational call with me. The programs that we have, Spark Your Strengths is running our next group call. That's our membership. It's $60 for the year. You can get into Spark at any time. You can share it with your downline, and it's 21 days or 21 steps. Doesn't have to be all done in 3 weeks. And it's all of the strengths learning chunked down into bite-sized pieces. It has all the links, so you can go get the reports you need. You can link to the podcast. You don't have to go online and search for it all. And it has a lot of journaling prompts. So you're going to end up getting a strengths journal and work with yourself every single day and start this daily practice of focusing on what's working and looking at others. So it's basically, I wrote that based on 7,000 hours of coaching. So like this is really chunked down because most people need some structure in order to do the learning. So if you go to katepintor.com, you can click on Spark Your Strengths. And if 10 people in a group do it, I will come and teach it and do the breakthrough coaching for your whole team. So if you are in a group and 10 of you decide to do that, I'm going to come and support you personally. Lastly, our next course starts July 15th, Into the Looking Glass. This is the Inside Out Leadership. We're working on our identity, developing our self-trust, seeing 360, necessary endings, because you have to make room if you want to grow. You got to make room for the good stuff to come. You can't keep going with many things that are happening right now, including your attitude, including the headspace that you're in. If you don't shift some of that and you're tolerating some things that are unhealthy, you can't have more until you clear room for more. So sometimes that's organizing and changing some habits and time management. And sometimes that's something massively different. We don't know what it is until we do it. So we've done 3 cohorts of Into the Looking Glass this year. Our next one starts July 15th. I will accept payment arrangements. So when you go to the site, if there's anything financial for you, I have 2 scholarships for moms who are single and trying to run their business. So if you know single moms, we have scholarships for them. And we have 1 scholarship. So these are not for entire scholarships, but it's a contribution towards, they pay 50%. We have 1 scholarship for a person who is chronically ill. That is also, because we're trying to reach out and make opportunities available for people that are having some hard times. So July 15th, Into the Looking Glass. Go to katepintor.com and click the link. And now I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you for coming.